Tories. We've beaten before and we'll do it again. And I tell you, the problem we've got in the left is, as the institutions of the working class and their jobs have been removed from around this country, some of their institutions been taken over by the Liberals. And that is a problem for us. Because I can tell you what, whatever you think about people that turn out for Tommy Robinson demos or any other march like that, the one thing that unites them people, beyond whatever other bigotry that's going on, is their hatred of the Liberal left. And they are right to hate them. They are correct. Because they are the people who have seen their industries taken away, who have captured their Labour Party, and are now talking to them like they're the scum of the earth. There's too many in the Labour Party right now. They've made a calculation that there's a certain section of the top end of the working class in alliance with people they calculate from ethnic minorities and the Liberals. That's enough to get them into power. And they believe that that alliance is all they need, that they can disregard all of the working class people in this country that have been driven away from the Labour movement by the neoliberals over the years.
This is his response.
So I'm being sued again. Remember last time Richard Tice, Nigel Farage's friend, tried to sue me for saying that Leave.eu tweeting a picture of a Jewish person puppeteering politicians, a well-known anti-Semitic trope, meant that he set up an anti-Jewish organization? I simply didn't have the money to hire lawyers to try and fight him in court, so I made a video, much like this one, backing up what I said and calling him out for trying to use his expensive lawyers to intimidate and silence me. And Richard Tice backed down, either because he realized he couldn't win the case or because he knew how bad it made him look. Similarly, right now I've got about £2,500 to my name, so hiring lawyers to match those of the person trying to sue me now would wipe me out financially anyway. So
fine, I'll do it myself.
Unfortunately, the person threatening to sue me right now is Eddie Dempsey, so I want to get a couple of things straight. I offered to sit down with him and explain why I, a person from an ethnic minority, found his comments specifically about ethnic minorities to be problematic in a way that supported the narrative of racists, and even put out a video together explaining what he meant, why the language he used was problematic, and give him a chance to tell the world that it was just a mistake. But Eddie Dempsey's lawyers have refused and have
Eddie was based, by the way.
Continued to threaten me with legal action that I cannot afford. However, he is the last person that I want a public fight with right now because he's doing amazing work for the Enough is Enough campaign. So I have a really weird request. Because I don't intend to hire lawyers, can I please ask that if you would have been willing to donate to any potential crowdfunder that I set up for my legal defense, can you instead donate the money to either his Enough is Enough campaign, the RMT, or any workers union that you feel needs help right now given the current crisis? So here's what I tweeted. Eddie Dempsey, speaking at Labour Leave, saying Tommy Robinson is right to hate Labour's focus on racial equality. These people held Labour back from firmly opposing Brexit until it was too late. And I tweeted it with this video.
And I tell you, the problem we've got in the left.
The problem is, though, is that Eddie didn't say that. Eddie didn't say that Tommy Robinson supporters are right to hate Labour's focus on racial equality.
Is, as the institutions of the working class and their jobs have been removed from around this country, some of their institutions been taken over by the Liberals.
Now, for starters, the use of the word liberal has always been a problem because what I hope he means is neoliberal, which is the word he uses at the end, which basically means free market capitalism. And obviously, trade unionists like him should rightfully be opposed to that. But the top definition of the word liberal means socially progressive. And 99% of the people watching this video, that's what they understand by that word. Hell, even Hinge sees it that way. Your options are liberal, left-wing, moderate, centre, conservative, right-wing. Hell, even Owen Jones, someone very much aligned with Ed Dempsey right now, at the time said that this term described anybody who was left-wing and anti-Brexit. But you're thinking, so what, he used the wrong word. But here's what he said about it.
The problem is, though, is that maybe what people think what the word means, but there are many liberals who are out of touch with the working class. Some Liberal politicians, for example, represent the interests of corporations, not the interests of the worker, but hide behind this guise of progressivism by being performative.
Whatever you think about people that turn out for Tommy Robinson demos or any other march like that, the one thing that unites them people, beyond whatever other bigotry that's going on, is their hatred of the Liberal left. And they are right to hate them. They are correct.
So it's undeniable that he said that the people who show up to Tommy Robinson rallies and rallies like that, which obviously includes Tommy Robinson, are right to hate liberals. So can you see why using a word that most people understand as meaning socially progressive to describe the people that you say Tommy Robinson is right to hate can be a problem? But let's just say these are red flags. What does he then say?
Because they are the people who have seen their industries taken away, who have captured their Labour Party, and are now talking to them like they're the scum of the earth.
Okay, so Tommy Robinson supporters are right to hate liberals because they're talking to them like scum. That's an interesting side to pick, given that nobody is calling Tommy Robinson supporters scum because they lost their industries or their jobs. They're calling them scum because they support this guy.
You think this is a British community, or you might have British Muslims. They are enemy combatants in these houses who want to kill you, maim you, and destroy you.
No, Mo. It's because the people from your home country, Somalia, are backward barbarians.
You're part of an invasion into our country, Sadiq.
But it's the next bit you really need to listen to.
There's too many in the Labour Party right now. They've made a calculation that there's a certain section of the top end of the working class in alliance with people they calculate from ethnic minorities and the Liberals. That's enough to get them into power. And they believe that that alliance is all they need, that they can disregard all of the working class people in this country that have been driven away from the Labour movement by the neoliberals.
So he's making the argument that Labour is neglecting the poorer end of working class people because it only needs the votes of liberals, upper working class, and ethnic minorities. A. Especially with the use of the word alliance, what he says suggests that the political interests of ethnic minorities on one hand, and by process of elimination, white working class on the other, are in opposition to each other, which is straight out of the UKIP handbook. And also neglects the fact that people from ethnic minorities are statistically more likely to be working class. B.
Eddie didn't say that Labour represent interests of minorities. He said that Labour have calculated that they do.
It treats being an anti-racist party as an optional extra because you specifically target the votes of ethnic minorities by being anti-racist, by promoting racial equality. So the question is, why ethnic minorities? Because he could have said the same thing about being anti-homophobia. Oh, Labour thinks it just needs the votes of gay people, so it doesn't need working class people. Or gender equality. Oh, Labour thinks it just needs the women vote, so to hell with poor people. Again, acting like intersectionality isn't a thing. But he chose to complain about Labour focusing on the group that Tommy Robinson's lot hate the most, ethnic minorities, to the detriment of poorer working class white people. Now again, I want this to be a teachable moment, so I'm going to show you some examples of me making similar points to Ed Dempsey long before I saw his video, and see if you can spot the difference.
That failure to really focus on regional inequality just to the same extent as we focus on the other protected characteristics in terms of inequality, that damages trust in those areas that are desperately being left behind.
You see how I pointed out that the left addresses a whole range of inequalities which exist in all regions of the UK, but has failed to be as strong on regional inequality specifically. So it's more about regional poverty being left out rather than pitting one group of people, say ethnic minorities, against another. And most importantly, I didn't have to agree.
He didn't say that. What it is that these Liberals do not appeal to the interests of working class people, regardless of race. These Liberals think that they have the right to their votes and think that that is enough to win them an election. But it's policies which help election hopes, not entitlement.
With extreme racists in order to do that. In fact, when I was filming at a pro-Brexit rally, I made a clear distinction between the working class people who wanted Brexit and the Tommy Robinson supporters who were also there.
And it's actually insulting to many of them to compare them with the Tommy Robinson lot because what they wanted was a political system that actually cared about them, that cared about areas outside of London, places that have been neglected by the political class for a very long time. Nothing to do with racism, nothing to do with Tommy Robinson or UKIP or any of that crap.
I put myself in physical danger on multiple occasions to highlight the dangers of aligning the working class struggle with a Brexit that was introduced, promoted, and driven through by the far right. And that's a link that I've been trying to break ever since I saw Labour's pro-Brexit MP Kate Hoey on a boat with Nigel Farage, because Brexit has objectively hurt working class people. The government's own experts say that Brexit has done more damage to our economy than COVID. Half of small businesses have had to stop selling to the EU. Academics say that it's added 6% to the cost of food. Brexit has hurt the very people that Eddie Dempsey wants to help, but he was supporting it. The speech we're talking about, he gave it at a pro-Brexit rally. People like him are the reason that Labour kept supporting Brexit for 3 years until late 2019.
That went well for Labour, didn't it?
At which point it was too late for Labour to lead the charge against it. And it just so happens that 2 weeks before the Dempsey video resurfaced, I put out a video about how Katie Hopkins was rebranding herself on TikTok as some sort of working class savior during the poverty crisis, because I am genuinely scared that if we let the people who supported Brexit by either being racist or defending the views of racists lead working class movements again, we will only have ourselves to blame when the next Brexit happens. Now, I am not saying that Eddie Dempsey is racist. The man has campaigned hard against racism. He has receipts on that. You even heard him talk about Tommy Robinson's bigotry in that speech. But people make mistakes. I've even known black people who are also anti-racist who, because of either internalized racism or unknowingly swallowing racist narratives from the media, have said stuff about black people that is more racist than what Dempsey said. So the fact that Dempsey has a history of standing up against racism doesn't make what he said in that speech any less problematic. Whatever his beliefs, the man messed up. And so again, we come back to, I'm getting sued. So I guess we probably should address that. There are 3 defenses against libel in the Defamation Act.
He didn't mess up, he was right. It's important to understand how people get radicalised. The harmful policies affecting working class communities pushes working class people away from the Labour Party and can push some working class people towards extremism because the extremists will use pro-working class language to convince them that they support working class interests when they don't. A big part of left-wing analysis is material conditions. Poverty can lead to crime, which can lead to prison. Data from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime shows that a lack of socio-economic opportunities and radicalisation in prisons are some factors which leads to violent extremism. To minimise support for extremists, make sure that people have opportunities, are financially secure, happy and healthy, and are not left behind and isolated.
2013. Truth, honest opinion, and public interest. As for the truth defense, what I said he said wasn't in quotations, and the video doesn't include those exact words, so it wouldn't make sense to try that defense. As for the defense of honest opinion, first criteria, it has to be an opinion, and as a matter of basic grammar, what I said can only be an opinion. Because I didn't say Eddie Dempsey said Tommy Robinson is right. I tweeted Eddie Dempsey saying Tommy Robinson was right, i.e. the video attached is Eddie Dempsey saying that. So any reasonable person seeing that tweet would read it as a summary of the attached video. And with political speeches, of course a summary is going to be a subjective analysis, also known as an opinion. And the second criteria for the defense of honest opinion is you have to show the basis for your opinion. And I can't stress this enough. I attached the video of him saying the things that created my opinion. As for the defense of public interest, I have to believe that it's in the public's interest for me to say those things. And I don't think it's in the public's interest for working class movements to be aligning themselves with far-right agendas, as evidenced by the Katie Hopkins video that I put out 2 weeks prior. Look, in a straight fight, he loses this case every day of the week. But he has a big law firm, and I just have this. Again, I didn't want to have to do this, but his lawyers are threatening me with financial elimination. But if he, a white man who literally agreed with Tommy Robinson's supporters on an issue concerning ethnic minorities, wants to
it's so
sue a black
fucking
man
cringe,
for
man.
saying so,
Weaponising
and thinks that's a
identity.
good look.
Look, Femi has misrepresented Dempsey's argument, said that he has said something he didn't, but Femi must be correct by virtue of race. Fuck off with this shit.
Fine. The most generous interpretation of these events is that he genuinely doesn't realize he's done anything wrong, because we all have blind spots, and so he just sees me as some centrist Ramoner who's trying to throw dirt on a socialist movement. And so he's using his superior legal resources to try and neutralize me. I can only hope that he sees this and changes his mind, because we have a lot of work to do, but it requires us to work together.
About a week ago, Femi has put out another video on Twitter about it.
Morning, people. This one is personal. I just have to say this for my own mental health and for my own internal sense of justice. I don't know for sure if saying this is good for the cause, because it's too personal to me for me to be objective. But I personally think it needs to be said. Remember last year when Eddie Dempsey, the RMT boss, he threatened to sue me because of my commentary on what he said during the Brexit campaigns.
Whatever you think about people that turn out for Tommy Robinson demos or any other march like that, the one thing that unites them people, beyond whatever other bigotry that's going on, is their hatred of the liberal left. And they are right to hate them. They are correct. Because they are the people who have seen their industries taken away, who have captured their Labour Party, and are now talking to them like they're the scum of the earth. There's too many in the Labour Party right now. They've made a calculation that there's a certain section of the top end of the working class in alliance with people they calculate from ethnic minorities and the Liberals. That's enough to get them into power. And they believe that that alliance is all they need, that they can disregard all of the working class people in this country.
And so I made a video last year about his threat to sue me, but I had to be very careful with my words because he could sue me at any time. And so I was very conciliatory and non-judgmental when I spoke about it, saying things like, the most generous interpretation of these events is that he genuinely doesn't realize he's done anything wrong, because we all have blind spots. But it's now been over a year, which is the deadline for if you want to sue somebody for libel in the UK, so I'm going to speak a bit more freely now. But of course, I don't want to get sued again, so the rest of this video is just theory. For example, can you imagine if, during the Brexit campaign years, during which hate crimes were rising exponentially, UKIP was marching in the streets. One MP had already been killed by a far-right white nationalist. You, as the leader of a supposedly left-wing movement, took to the stage to find common cause with Tommy Robinson supporters, specifically to fuel the far-right narrative that left-wing parties care more about helping ethnic minorities than working-class people, thus pitting the two against each other, even though statistically there's a hell of a lot of overlap between those two groups. And then, can you imagine if...
Look, like I said, these liberals don't support the interests of the multiracial working class, and Femi has just shown the overlap between ethnic minorities and the working class.
When a black person then calls you out for effectively siding with Tommy Robinson, instead of saying, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do that, you then threaten to sue him. And then, can you imagine if when that black person then responds saying, hey, what you said was deeply problematic, but you might have meant something different, I'd be happy to sit down with you, even on camera, to help set the record straight, say what you actually meant, say how you wish you'd have phrased it differently, and the black man even offers to help rehabilitate your image because a lot of people were equally disgusted by what you said. And can you imagine if your response as a white man to a black man offering to help you get away with siding with Tommy Robinson's supporters was to say, nah, pay me? It is rare for me to use the word caucasity, a definition which includes when...
For fuck's sake. How about if black people agree with Dempsey, or does Femi's opinion take priority over theirs? You're not correct by virtue of race, or is Femi going to make the argument that black people who praise the Austrian painter, make anti-Semitic remarks, hate mixed-race people, and supported segregation are better on race issues than someone like Dempsey, who has a history of being against it?
A white person wrongly assumes that they understand racial issues better than people from ethnic minorities. But the theoretical story that I just described goes off the charts. And the thing is, when I first got the email threatening me with legal action, my first thought was, hang on, he's obviously seen what happened with Richard Tice when Richard Tice tried to sue me, and that I made a video explaining my legal position and that what I said was entirely justified within the law, and also calling him out for trying to use his expensive London lawyers to intimidate his political opponents into silence. And he dropped that case, which proved it was just about intimidation and censorship. And so if Eddie Dempsey saw that and still came at me like this, he must have a real case. And yet here we are, a year later, and nothing, which again, just about intimidation and censorship. Now at the time, I spoke to people in Labour to try and understand who Eddie Dempsey was and why he was doing this. And they told me there's a section of the left that believes in helping the working class, but that their vision of what the working class is doesn't really include people who look like me. Now I'm not saying that that applies to Eddie Dempsey, but that theory does fit quite well with the sort of person who would threaten to sue a black person for complaining that you sided with Tommy Robinson supporters. Because let me level with you. I do what I do because my EU background meant that I knew what Brexit would unleash in the UK in terms of poverty, ill health, and hatred. And because of my academic and professional background, I knew that I had the technical expertise to counter those narratives. So morally, I had to do this. I'm not doing this for money. I have a law degree and professional experience working inside the EU institutions in Brussels and Vienna. Yet here I am, filming inside my bedroom. The reason I entered therapy last year is precisely because I didn't give a shit about my own life. So the people who threaten to sue me, it's not for money because I don't have any. It's not for the truth, otherwise they'd keep going. They just want to stop me doing what I believe is right because they're bullies with lawyers. I'm Femi. Have a great week.
This comes across as self-important. People have gone after Dempsey for other reasons, like his previous support of Alexei Mozgovoi, a misogynist who was leader of the Prizak Brigade who violated human rights. An RMT spokesman said, the union does not support either Vladimir Putin or his actions in Ukraine, with Dempsey saying that he fully agrees with the union's position. And look who retweeted this. This retard. She has defended Just Stop Oil. Just Stop Oil are an activist group who are stopping people from getting to work, taking their kids to school, and emergency services from getting to where they need to be because they are protesting in the middle of the road about climate change. Now, the issue isn't with them protesting about climate change, but the issue is with the tactics used by Just Stop Oil, which alienates people rather than gets them behind the group. They're disrupting working class people who have no control over the corporations who contribute most to climate change. People like her are not on the side of the working class. Her defence of Just Stop Oil is that they're not sex offenders or bigoted or killers. Is that how low the bar is? They're not sex offenders, not bigoted, not murderers, so she supports them. Schizo. She did this video, which I didn't really have much of a problem with until the last couple of minutes or so.
The other thing that I find particularly galling is people going around calling Keir Starmer kid starver, right? When has he had the power to do that? The people that have starved children for 13 years are the Conservative government. 14 million plus living in poverty. Hundreds of thousands ruined by austerity. Hundreds of thousands of people dead. They wouldn't even top up free school meals for kids that were living with nothing during the pandemic. The problem with this is you shift the blame from where it deserves to be.
You do realise you can criticise both. Starmer said he won't scrap the two-child limit despite families being left £3,000 out of pocket. Ethnic minority and larger families were disproportionately likely to be hit by the two-child limit and benefit cap, typically leaving them unable to afford essential items for their children such as food, clothes and heating, with a consequent negative effect on children's emotional and physical development.
Which is on the Conservatives, the people that have had the power, that have implemented the cruel policy. The opposition are irrelevant. They've not been able to do anything.
The opposition should be convincing you to vote for them. You don't wait for them to get more power before judging them.
And they're not going to be able to do anything if you spread hatred about someone that hasn't even had an opportunity to have a record in power based on hypothesis or based on your reverence for someone that you feel should be the leader instead. The only people it helps is the Conservatives, who sit back and laugh at the left whilst they bleed us dry because they're moral corrupt bastards. Ultimately, what this comes down to is the fact that it's not 5 years ago. A lot has changed. All hell has broken loose. And what we need is a capable, competent Prime Minister to help dig us out of the mess. Just look at what happened when the Tories made their mascot their leader. I want politics to be boring again, so I can sleep at night. I don't want an entertainer running the country. This is an emergency, and if you've got, the ability to sit there and talk about your principles or talk about how people should earn your vote, despite the fact that first past the post doesn't care about your feelings, then you must be privileged. Frankly, you must be able to afford another Tory term.
This is so fucking cringe. Politicians should earn your vote. This just comes across as entitlement from her.
But millions living in abject poverty, including millions of children, can't. So think about them when you cast your vote. And think about who you're helping when you shit on the opposition based on pure hypothesis. Heads up, it's the Conservatives.
Being smug isn't going to convince people to vote for Keir Starmer at the next election, is it? Rachel Reeves is the Shadow Chancellor who was praised by Republican Chuck Grassley for Reagan-esque policy. This is the same Rachel Reeves who said back in 2013 that Labour would be tougher on welfare than the Tories. She also said that populism needs to be consigned to the bin. So what should we fight right-wing populism with? The same harmful liberal policies which push people away from Labour and some towards extremism? She has also defended throwing milkshakes at Nigel Farage. Whether Farage is a fascist or not, do you think a milkshake will stop a fascist? They'll use the incident to try and get sympathy, and who determines who is and is not a fascist? Assaulting a politician is wrong, unless in self-defence. She has also supported stop funding heat tactics, trying to get advertisers to pull out of GB News, the cringe rightoid channel. How about don't watch, instead of doing something you wouldn't like if it was done to you? In the UK, there was someone who was sent to jail after having an abortion when the baby was at 32 to 34 weeks, which means they're a fully developed baby, and people tried to defend the woman and say that she should not be sent to jail, even though she had to give birth anyway. So why take the medication? Because it's a fully developed baby, this means it's no longer about your body, and this was murder. She lied by saying she was 10 weeks pregnant to get the medication. People tried to defend her, bringing up her defence, which was that she was pregnant during COVID, yet she found out that she was pregnant in December 2019, and we didn't enter lockdown until March 2020, so she had enough time to get an abortion. Her sentence was just over 2 years, which is very lenient, considering those who murder their children outside the womb get longer. Even though a fully developed baby inside the womb is a life, just like those outside the womb, they tried to do these insane mental gymnastics to say that a fully developed baby inside the womb isn't a life. 24 weeks gives you enough time to get an abortion. Parents who murder their children outside the womb get 20, 30 years, possibly life. There's got to be a cut-off point, otherwise you are ending the lives of fully developed babies. She then tried to weaponise men's identity against them, saying that they cannot have an opinion on this because they are men, even though many women held the same view. People like her, who have an extreme view on abortion, give extreme anti-abortion conservatives ammunition. She has also defended Charlotte Proudman, who's basically a lolcow. Proudman has the same views as her on the abortion case, and I'll talk more about her in another video.